All right, so we are here with Max from DMTV. How's it going, man?
I'm doing good, bro. I appreciate you for having me. I'm super excited. Been going on a little press run, I guess you could call it, from the show. I've been excited to kind of just tell my story a little bit. So I appreciate you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, I know you from the second show back in February.
February.
And since then, relationship has grown. It's awesome. You treated me like crazy, so I'm thankful to have you here. And thank you for using your equipment and everything. So let's just get right into it. When did you start DMTV?
So the brand started, I want to say, like beginning of 2020. Like around, like I would say February-ish was where things established. Like I shot a music video around, I think it was end of January, and I released it in I released it in early March. So I think March was really the official, like that's where I have like the official beginning of it. But I would say for myself, February was the major pinnacle moment where I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. So in my mind, it was February, but when I officially launched, when I had the page open and everything, was March of 2020. And I had like, even for example, like the logo, I made that a few months back, like December 2019. It was just kind of like spontaneous. It was originally meant Director Max. It was kind of like my thing. I don't know. I was just kind of going for more of a typical name. And then I realized like, why? I mean, just use my real name. Yeah, it might not be easy at first for people to pronounce it, but I think it was just kind of cool. Like, let me just use my actual name rather than try to make something up, because I feel like everyone does that. So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to embrace it more. But so I found another meeting for it, which now stands for digital music, and things have kind of like flourished outside of like just DMTV. Like that's my main thing. But there's so many things that kind of comes with it now, which is dope. So like digital music records is one of the main things that I just recently like officially launched. It's been a thing in my head for over 2 years now, but it's actually came to life now. And having, for example, the first artist Lil Esso on it, and it's kind of just gone a life of its own. It's almost like its own little side project, side brand, I guess you could call it. It's its own collective now. It's just growing, which is dope.
And what was the original vision behind DMTV?
So the original vision was, I felt like the city needed a platform that was putting on for the underground scene, and I don't know, just a place that actually showcased underground talent, not the people that had numbers. Because I feel like a major issue for a long time was that street rappers in the city were getting all the attention from media. They still do, from a lot of the media pages, and that's no disrespect. Like I listen to street rap, I fuck with it. I think there's a market for it, but there's so many artists in the scene that are just not gonna ever get that support that they need, or have a platform to get pushed on. And I feel like there have been more in recent time that have popped up, which is dope. But I know back when I started it, there was nothing. And I feel like that's where I think part of the brand with the articles and stuff, that's one of the biggest things that I think in my eyes I launched that really helped the underground scene and kind of start bringing people together, was the article side of it. The website, the blogs started covering that and really putting a lot of energy and attention towards showcasing and really putting on for the little guys, I guess you could say. Because I mean, I was one of them. I'm still in the process of going up, but it was a way of just connecting, showing the people that I knew or that knew me, okay, there's more music here. And just over time, I think a solid year, it didn't really do much. It was just like, oh, thank you so much for writing an article, but it didn't really do much. I think by 2021-ish, like end of 21, early 22 is when the impact of it started actually showing, and I had people reaching out, and now we get emails of people saying, hey, we want to get an article coverage, which is just amazing, kind of like returning the favor. Because I know some people that I've written articles on, how much it meant to them, and seeing that returned now to me, and kind of having people say that back to me is kind of, it's dope to see that something like that made an impact.
And you've built a nice little 3-piece team here. How did you meet Esso, your first artist?
So Esso, we met back in 2021. It was actually, shout out to my boy Jetlag. He's probably one of the, I'm going to continue to say his name many times in many future interviews, because I feel like he's one of the main guys that brought together the underground scene that like we have today. A lot of people would not know each other, or at least wouldn't even be where they are now without him. I feel like he was one of the main people that connected me to the first group of artists I worked with. This is before Esso. This is back in 2020. But I think we really kind of started communicating with Jet early 2021, and then a few months later he sends me an artist like, yo, check this guy out, he's super fire, like he's got this like pop mainstream sound. And I was like, oh shit, you know, because I didn't really see too much of that going on here. At least at the time I was more focused on that like hyper pop rage scene, which I still mess with, but I kind of felt like, okay, I'm someone that enjoys a broad taste in music, so it's like I wanted to find someone that was more in that mainstream pop lane. And as soon as I heard him, I was like, yeah, no, this is crazy. And then I don't remember if I reached out first or if he reached out first, but I remember I was on the beach and we hopped on a phone, and it clicked pretty well on that first call. And then after that, we just started communicating, and we locked in for the first video, which was Hawaii. And ever since then, it was just kind of like we built something slowly from the ground up. It wasn't forced, like, oh, let's do a team, let's do this, let's do that. It was very chill. And I think even after we shot, for example, I forgot what video it was, but I think we had like a moment where it was some time off where we didn't even really talk for a few months. It was like a decent amount of time up until I think it was September, October of last year, when we really, like, as soon as we shot So Cold, that's when I think everything clicked between me and him, and we knew like, okay, this is something that we need to do together, because we hadn't found the people we needed to help our careers and that understood each other as much as we did. So things just kind of clicked off from there.
And then how did you meet Evan?
Evan wasn't too long after the end of last year when I kind of clicked up with Esso, like officially. It was January. We were shooting the Ego Death music video, and on one of the main sets where we had the Rolls Royce, Esso just told me like, yo, I'm gonna bring this guy that I fuck with, that I've been working with. And I was like, yeah, cool, no, 100%, like any hands we can get is always useful on set, just because we, you know, like not just between me and Esso, but we do, like, just the way I shoot videos is I'm very not only hands-on, but I do things with a very minimal to no budget, and I kind of try to, you know, use whatever resource I can. So to me, it was like, oh, an extra hand, why not? And I don't know, his energy was crazy, and I feel like over time, it wasn't immediate, but I know a few months later we kind of slowly started to, as a trio, I'd go to Alessio's house. Evan was, you know, there, and we would just kind of like chill, slowly got to know each other a little bit more. And I think it was around March, April time where we kind of started to communicate a lot more heavy. And that's when I think things kind of started moving, and eventually he literally got a tattoo of the record label logo before it was even an official thing. So I think that kind of sparked it and moved things a lot quicker too. So he's a big reason why the Digital Music Records is, you know, has kind of come to fruition quicker, because that was something I had in the back of my mind. I want to do this one day, but it was no plans in my mind of doing it this soon. And then we're here after your third show, but you've had 2 shows prior. How did you build those shows? So show business that's a difficult one, because even to this day, up until I guess this last show that I just had, I was doing everything alone. And I really hadn't, like, I had no help in basically preparing or finding venues or none of that. Like, I had no support system at all there. It was just kind of like, hey, figure this out. And I really wanted to do shows because I felt like, oh, if I want to move forward and if I want to put on for artists, I have to do physical shows. And I think the biggest difficulty wasn't the artists, just because I already knew a bunch of artists from writing the blogs on the site, from doing videos. So I already had the lineup basically secured. I already knew who I wanted. That was pretty easy for me, because I built that kind of personal relationship with a lot of them. But the hardest part was the venues. That was a horrible experience. Like, I think up until this last show, since I started kind of doing stuff with Evan, the show booking process was horrendous. Like, I ended up finding a venue that I think a lot of places do for their first one. It's called the Supermarket. Shout out to them. They got, you know, it's a decent venue. It looks good, especially for the capacity that it offers. And the owner, which I don't remember if the person who I talked to still works there, because last time I tried to call, the guy didn't work there anymore. But super nice guy, kind of helped me with the process and, you know, of booking it and setting that up. I think the process of booking venues were the most difficult, because even with the next show after that, the second show, I booked the Drake Underground, which quote unquote I was considered something crazy. The experience there wasn't great. It was a really nice venue, but the ownership there and just kind of like that whole situation, just like business wise, I don't know, it just didn't really, our visions didn't align, because I was really big on trying to make sure it wasn't a 19 plus. I wanted to kind of do an all ages event, so I think that was a major issue too. For the first two shows was having all ages was a big thing for me. And I realized that was one of the main reasons why it was so difficult to find venues and get that going, because venues don't want rap underground fans, because they're so rowdy, they're crazy, they don't want that in their venues. So fighting to get an all ages event twice was just, after the second one I was like, never again, because that second show there was actually a divide where the owner said, hey, if you're under the age, you got to be behind this line. And he didn't tell me up until the day of the show. So I didn't know that until the day of the show. And the green room was also closed off for me the day of. And when I did the tour there, because I had a friend that actually works at that hotel, that's why I even knew about the venue. It sounded like everything was going to be good, but as soon as I got there the day of, just fucked me over basically. Just last minute locked everything off, told me, hey, this is how the show is actually gonna run, and then everyone just had to figure it out. I had to figure out everything last minute. So that was the challenges.
And you talked about wanting all ages and then changing it for this show. What else did you learn with those two previous shows?
So one thing I know that a lot of people have issues with is the organization of shows. It's not easy. For the first one, I feel like that's the one thing I could take pride in, knowing that like none of my shows were complete chaos. Not even the first one was pretty well organized in terms of who's performing when and why. But there are a few little things of like just knowing that like, hey, we are in the underground. These guys, not all of them have managers. They're kind of like on their own free will. Timing, and because I was alone too, I couldn't make sure that everyone was there on time. So mic check, even up until this show, mic checks have probably been the most difficult and something I really want to improve on. Making sure that the time slots are like they're there. They've been there since the first one, but making them very strict. Where like, if you don't come at this time, you're not getting mic check. Like being as strict as possible, because at a certain point, like I can't give people too many shots and chances. And I think a major thing too with the second show was letting too many people in for free last minute. Like when I told artists, hey, you only have 2 artists you can bring with you, and they would come in and sneak in like 10 people. It's like, that kind of hurt the amount of ticket sales we can have, but also just like, it's just kind of disrespectful. Like I told you can only bring this much and then bring in more. So just building up more of like that, hey, this is how things are going to work. It's either you like it or you don't, and it's like, this is how we're going to be moving. So being a little bit more strict, building a plan out that encompasses having the organization down even stronger to a point where we can enforce, like essentially you could call it like the law of the show. Like, hey, if I said this time, this is the time. The first 2 shows I try to do that, and I kind of gave more leniency and gave people more of like, hey, if you respect me, you'll do this. And a lot of them did do that. So there's no one I could single out or say like, oh, they did this. It was more of just like a mixture of like, and then a lot of it wasn't even artists. It was like the people they were with that kind of like, just like friend groups, like taking too much time or just, taking their attention away from what's important. So I think the first 2 shows, they were organized, but there's a few loopholes there because I was alone and I had to run around and do them all on my own. So it was just impossible. So now that I have a team going, I feel like I can improve on that step. But this past show, I think 90% of things were great. I think there was nothing like wrong from a viewer perspective. It was great. A lot of the stuff that I would change is more behind the scenes, more personal, like stuff that I want to make better. So I think a lot of it's just there.
And how did you build the lineup for this show? Because I know it's a lot of local artists, but it was still very strong. How did you come up with that?
So over the last year, I've kind of started to slowly realize like, hey, I want to grow the brand in a more mainstream direction and start pushing more of like, I don't know, a sound that's more broad that can reach a bigger group of people. Because I feel like as soon as I started, because I had family, for example, that supported me, and every time they would play my videos, it'd always just be rap, hip-hop, underground, like rage and shit. And like, I love that music so much and it means so much to me. But realizing, hey, I was just stuck in this one lane. It was just like I needed to move forward and just start branching the brand out, because there's only so far I could go in that sound as a brand. Yeah, there's artists here and there that make it, but it's a lot harder of a industry, I guess, or sorry, not industry, I guess a scene to make it in, but also to branch out to a different level. So essentially, I decided, hey, I got to start branching out to more of a mainstream sound. And over time, I started working with more mainstream people, and I found a lot of amazing talent I didn't know before. So one of the guys, actually, huge shout out to T-Dot. I appreciate him, actually, because he flew out all the way from Edmonton just to do the show. So he's a super talented artist. He's got like a crazy, amazing friend group. I think those are like, I think that's probably the only person or only artist and / friend group I've seen that's close to what we got going on. They're like, I'm just like, they're serious. Every single one of them is great. And they all flew out here, every single one of them. So I can't even imagine how much they spent just to, as a group, as a unit, to come out here just for this show. It was a 10-15 minute set. So to go all the way here just to do that, it genuinely means a lot. So I appreciate T-Dot for doing that, and his team. So that's one of the artists that I found out about, I think actually a decent amount of time ago. It was like a good year and a half ago. And we've just been talking online for some time, and he's been wanting to work with me for a decent amount of time, and vice versa. We've been just talking nonstop, like, hey, when are you able to come to Toronto or whatever? Because for a long time I thought he was from here. Until I hit him up like, yo, let's do a video. He's like, oh shit, I'm not even from Toronto. And I was like, wait, what? Because he was so involved in the scene, I didn't even realize he wasn't from here, because he knows everyone in Toronto. Like it's crazy. So he's actually really, like, I like the way he handles this stuff, because he's built something great in a sense where I didn't even know he wasn't from here for a very long time until just recently. So that's one of the main artists I would say that was just like, oh, that's one artist I knew I needed to do a show with for a long time. I was like, yeah, his energy, I need to get him out here. A few other ones. Misa is a big one that I think I knew her for some time through Quasi. And I don't know, she was kind of more low-key for a long time, kind of behind the scenes, just doing stuff with Quasi, and her music wasn't really getting pushed too heavy. And up until like within the last year, when she dropped her project last year, really kind of put things into gear for her, I would say. Showed the world like, yo, you have something amazing going here. And seeing that, seeing the reception of it, I knew like, hey, we need to really make sure that I get her on shows and get her face out there more, because I feel like her talent is incredible. It's beyond insane. So I feel like we need to, I would say that was one of the main things. I was like, hey, I need to get her on a show, and what better show than a show that's mainly about pop and more of that mainstream sound. So I think that was another one that I was like, have to get her on. And another major one too was Rye. I met him recently. And Rye is a super talented, just, I don't know, I think his main thing is performing. If I'm not mistaken, from the stuff I've seen on social media, performing was one of his main like things, and he really showed out. Even though he was an opener, like for me, that whole topic of opening and closing, like I really don't, like in my mind, when I put someone in a position of like opening, middle, end, whatever, it's not because of their status or whatever. It's just whatever made sense in that moment of like, in terms of just organization's sake or sound. A lot of time it's just sound too, but he did have a tough spot of having to open up for the show, and he did amazing. Like he's definitely one of the main performers that people still talk to, and like I got DMs about like, yo, Rye is crazy, like he's insane performer. So shout out to Rye. He's amazing, and like the live performance of like actually hearing his music live, that was a different experience too, because I did shoot a live mic with him not too long ago that dropped. I think it dropped in August, so not too far of a distance from the show. And hearing him, even while we were recording, he was performing the song. Like we recorded it, like I did 10 takes maybe, and this guy was singing the entire time, the whole song, all 10 takes. I was like, yeah, this guy's a performer. So he's a big one too, that definitely will have him in the future show. He's crazy. He's super talented.
How do you think the night went overall?
The night was, I would say it was electric for a good portion of it. I would say the beginning was a little slow. I think people kind of came into the venue very late. A lot of people, like the doors open at 7, show started around 8. And we kind of delayed the show because not enough people were at the venue. I don't know, like if it was traffic or the location, but not too many people were there in the first 8, like that first moment of when the show began. So we kind of delayed the show a little bit. So I guess that was more of a lower point of the show, but the high point, and I would say is the audience. I was kind of surprised how much of the music they knew, and how excited they were for a lot of the performers. Like I would say the audience did really well with basically every performer. Like they appreciated all the music, and the craziest thing too is no one left the stage. Like everyone was in their position. Like no one, like, yeah, a few people would walk out to grab a drink, go to the washroom, whatever, but there wasn't too many people that would actually just walk off like, hey, I don't want to watch this performer. People were consistent and they stayed, which is something that was a big problem with the other shows. People would just get up and leave when it wasn't their performer, and I think that's something that I really wanted to improve on. And and it actually happened this time. Like I saw it real life. Like people were there for the whole show.
What was your favorite moment from the night?
Oh, there's a lot of great moments. I feel like standing on stage with Alessio, and just seeing the crowd kind of like chant his name and know the lyrics to his music like that. That was definitely one of the highlights of the night. Like seeing that what we're doing is like really clicking with people. It's crazy. Like just the whole room was like it looked packed. Like it was basically packed all the way through, and just seeing that, and basically everyone there was chanting Esso's name and going crazy to the music. I feel like that was something that was like out of a movie. That was crazy. And I also appreciate all the content creators that came out, like yourself. I appreciate you for coming out and doing the video. Thank you for covering the night and shooting that. It meant so much. And other guys like Project Rager, for coming out and doing such a funny interview. As we're filming this, it's not out yet, but I would assume by the time this comes out, it'll be that interview should already be out. But I appreciate all the content creators, like all the content that came out, the photos, the videos, like everything. Just I appreciate everyone for taking the time to do that, and capturing the night.
And what did you learn from this show?
Ooh, I learned that it was that I need to be out more and communicate more, and I feel like that was one thing I was able to do with this show, was having someone like Evan on my team who understands me, who works as hard as me, to be able to handle a lot of like that heavy stuff that would have taken, I just would have been running around like the last 2 shows. I was able to be a lot more present, and I feel like I still would like to be a little bit more present with the future shows. So I think with this one, I was able to talk to way more people, engage, communicate, actually, just give people more of a personal experience. Like, hey, you're at my show, let me kind of communicate with you. Like, let me have a moment with you. And I think that was huge, and that was something that I've always dreamed of being able to do. Like, hey, it's my show and I'm here as a boss, as a face. Like, hey, let me show you what I got going on here, and kind of like, just kind of guide people through the night maybe, or build new connections, like whatever it is. So I want to do more of that as we go with these next shows, and start building the team out more, and just be more present with the audience and with the people that come out.
Yeah, and where do you go from here? Not only with the showcases, but with DMTV and the record label even.
Okay, yeah. There's a lot that I want to do, but to sum it all up, I feel like record label stuff. There's a lot of great things coming up. Obviously, Esso's dropping an album on the 13th of October. Nevermind. That's probably, I don't know, it's probably the best body of work I've heard just coming out of the city. Or like even in general, like there's not too many albums that I can actually sit through and listen through every single song, and every song is a hit. And I think that's the one thing that he prioritizes, is making music that works, and every song has something to offer. It's not just throwaways. It doesn't make a song with a bunch of music on it and it's throwaway. So I think as a label, that's one thing I want to prioritize, is making music and albums that you actually want to listen to from top to bottom. And I think this one right here is a classic that will definitely be a defining moment, and something that he'll and myself including will talk about this for the rest of our careers. But aside from the record label stuff and us just kind of traveling more and doing more and dropping more, is for DMTV, I want to, not that I want to shoot more videos, but I want to be even more meticulous with who I work with, why I work with them, and creating moments and videos that just kind of like, I don't know, that just have an impact with the scene, and that hopefully influence change, and that actually bring something bigger. I don't know, bring bigger names on the page, just to expose it to more. And yeah, I guess do more shows is a big one. I want to launch the festival, the Digital Music Fest, which is another part of the digital music branding. And launch that, start doing more shows, and merchandise is a big one too. I want to start dropping merch, and not like regular, oh, I'm gonna slap my logo on a t-shirt like I did for the show. More of like well crafted, good stuff that you would even want to wear with like designer clothes, or just actually wear it out and it doesn't have a big fat logo on it, just advertising me. So getting deeper on that as well. But yeah, there's a lot of things I want to do with DMTV. It's kind of hard to sum it all up, but there's a great number of things, and I would say shows and merchandise is a really big one, and videos I want to just lock in and make sure if you see a video coming out from me, it's one that you won't want to miss, and it's never a video of like, yeah, I could skip this one. I want to make sure that when I'm dropping, people really make sure that they don't miss it, and it's something special.
Like classic lyrical lemonade.
Yeah, like really special stuff. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and doing the interview. I really appreciate everything you've done. You know, shooting this interview, Esso's interview, and then even having me at the show. It was really, really special.
100%.
And I look forward to working together.
No, for sure. There's a lot of stuff we got coming up for sure. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you for having me, brother. Yeah.
That's been Gabzzz with the MAXIM BAYARSKY interview. I hope you enjoyed.
Boom.